The puck is about to drop on your favorite all-Canadian hockey podcast. Without further ado, here are the boys with Canada.
Hey guys, welcome to the Canada Puck Podcast, your weekly recap of what's going on in the world of hockey, specifically in Canada, which is a whole division right now, so we really got that market cornered. I'm your co-host, Mick. You can find me on Twitter at ProfitMick, and I'm joined every episode by my lovely and talented co-host, the man you see above me,
Grant, on Twitter at Fourth Line Sports. Feels kind of fucky today. It was Saturday, obviously. Yep. But only 6 games on the NHL schedule. And it gets even more fucky when you look at the West Coast team is actually the early game to appease the Montreal fans, and the Central game is the late game, which is basically going to fist whatever Senators fans were interested in watching hockey tonight.
Yeah, those poor guys at the Canadian Tire Change Center, is that what that's called?
Something like that, I don't know. Yeah. But I know that there's going to be at least 8 people upset by this decision. It is weird. It does one of those things. Usually we do it on Saturdays, specifically because Saturday is kind of the big hockey day, right? There's lots on the schedule. It kind of seems like almost every night, just because we have these interdivision matchups. We're having these 2 Canadian teams butt heads. It's almost like every night there's a big hockey game on, which is, I think I like it. I could definitely see being fatigued at some point, right? Because I kind of like those Wednesdays. You're not really feeling it. Maybe you flip between a hockey game and something else on TV, right? Whereas now it almost feels like 3, 4, 5 nights a week, there's like a big game on that you have to kind of watch, right? So it's nice because the stakes are so much higher, and if there's not a lot else going on in your life, that's enjoyable, but it is weird. Like Grant said, a little fucky. Yeah, fucky's the best word to describe it.
Yeah.
Other than that, I spent the whole week, getting ready for our triumphant return to the YouTube channel. Good for us.
I think so. I think we got the formatting worked out a little bit. Like, we're almost the same size. There's not just like big head Grant and then like little Mick talking over his shoulder. So that's kind of exciting. We'll see how this setup works, Go from there.
It was a good metaphor, though. It's kind of like this little, I don't know if you're the devil or the angel. I want to say you're the devil. You're the little devil, kind of just like, giving me an earful, telling me how stupid I am. That's nice.
That's what we go for. It's what we go for. So, courtesy of NHL.com, we'll kind of start off. It's essentially the way the show works is we're going to do headlines, so kind of talk about the big news story with each team. We're going to give you a little bit of gambling advice, try and get you a little bit richer. We're going to touch a little bit on DFS too, so kind of that daily fantasy rather than doing the pools. We've done the pools in the past, and pools are fine if they're groups of guys. But there's always a Scheisler. There's always some stupid trade somewhere in the season. There's always, something in those. DFS might work better for hockey, right? I know that fantasy football for the NHL, right, is big. It's kind of a big ticket. Guys love those. Hockey just doesn't really do it for me. That's just me. That's my opinion. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you guys disagree, so. So I guess starting out, I have the homepage. Grant can't see this. We'll figure out screen sharing next. That's our next thing. But I'm on the homepage of NHL.com, and the top story right now is Pierre-Luc Dubois traded to the Jets for Laine.
And Roslovich. Let's not poor forgotten Jack. Is it Jacob Roslovich?
It's like a J. Definitely a J. So we scroll through. Let's go to our... Where are they at? Discover Central. This could be our Discover Central story and kind of tie it into the Jets, I suppose. So a bit of a move. Pierre-Luc Dubois seemed unhappy, right? Just rumblings over the summer. It kind of sounded like he was on his way out anyways. They gave him a little bit of a bridge deal. I think... Obviously, the sandpaper that comes with John Tortorella was rubbed him the wrong way a little bit. He had, if you've seen the memes, if you're on Twitter, if you're not, you can see some of the worst on-ice performance you'll ever see from a hockey player, where essentially he just skates around. He's not involved in the play. He's not making a difference. He's not even trying out there. He's just basically standing there. Finally led to a benching and resulted in this deal, right? So...
that was honestly some of the
worst hockey I've ever seen. And to see him have a step on both those Lightning defensemen, and then he just kind of swats at the puck and he was done with the play and skates off the ice as the Lightning start to move up the ice. Like, you could, like, body language says so much, and this guy has checked out. Like, this couldn't have come at a better time. My only concern is it kind of feels like the Jets lost this trade. And that's not to say that, you know, Pierre-Luc Dubois isn't going to be a great fit in Winnipeg, but just with Laine being what he is, and that is a pure goal scorer, and Pierre-Luc Dubois coming in, I don't think that he can replace what Laine brought to the Jets. And that might hurt them this season when, you know, points are more valuable than ever.
Okay, that's interesting, because my first take on this is I thought Pierre-Luc Dubois was a game break, like a difference maker in that playoff series against the Leafs last year. He really, at least in my opinion, looked like kind of one of those things that, like, when he's trying, he is that number one center. He is kind of the a breaking, like a presence that you don't really have. So now you have that depth down the center between Scheifele and Pierre-Luc Dubois. You're a little bit deeper. You've got tons of wings. So, I mean, it's not like you're losing anything. Laine was a defensive liability. He had very low assist totals throughout his career, right? Yeah, he could score goals, but you can find those goal scorers, right? And that gives those younger guys in that Jets organization a step forward. He's locked up for another year past this year, right? Whereas Laine's contract is done after the season. So there's a chance that he was walking away anyways. So you essentially turned an asset that's going to walk away. I don't think Laine is going to be in Columbus long term, right? Like, I think once him and Tortorella butt heads a little bit and he gives him a hard time for not trying, he's probably on his way out the door anyways. So you're basically, like, I think the Blue Jackets, they'll try. Maybe they sign him to something, but I wouldn't be surprised if Laine gets moved again this year, right? Later on down the road. So
if Laine wasn't happy with his environment in Winnipeg, he sure as fuck is not going to be happy in Columbus. Worst city, way worse coach. Like, Paul Maurice has this reputation for being a player's coach, and John Tortorella is exactly the opposite, where people hate playing for him, but he wins games, so he still has a job in the league. And you're right, maybe I misspoke about Dubois, or maybe I, undersold what Dubois contributes, but that goal-scoring ability is what the Jets need, because it feels like they are loaded with playmakers. I'm just taking a quick look at Dubois' stats, and he does score goals. And not to diminish that, but that's what Laine did, and especially on the power play, they have a lot of, feels like young, skilled forwards, but they don't really have a true trigger man now that Laine is gone. And that's kind of where my mind starts to think, well, if we're losing 4, 5, 6 power play goals on the season, probably some even strength or 5-on-5, that could be the difference in games, and that could be what the difference in making the postseason this year. Yeah,
interesting. I mean, it does. On the draft page, the 2006 draft, Patrick Laine went second to the Jets, and Pierre-Luc Dubois went third to the Blue Jackets. So it's kind of interesting. Those guys have kind of been intertwined in that sense, basically, since they were drafted, and now they're flip spots, right? So,
do you want to hear the Oilers fan in me coming out? So you're going from the second, third perspective. Here I was hanging on to the fourth pick, Jesse Puljujarvi. I was like, it's perfect. Columbus could just undo their mistake of taking Dubois. But obviously it wasn't meant to be, and I know that in that hypothetical scenario, the Oilers would obviously have fleeced the Jackets, so
yeah,
real life is set in, and I got to go back to accepting what I have.
Yeah, that's fair. So there you go. So there's two different opinions on this trade. Like Grant's kind of leaning the fact that he thinks Winnipeg got worse. I'm thinking they definitely changed. They changed their philosophy of who they are. Are they better? Are they worse? Yet to be decided. So I think with a little bit more time too. And I mean, if Pierre-Luc Dubois, he looks good. Like, people wanted him, right? Other fan bases wanted him. It's not like he was just this random asset. He's a cancer. I think he just disagreed with Tortorella, and that happens a lot, right? He's not the first player to be ran out of Tortorella's system. And I think that's kind of the pros and cons of Tortorella. He comes in, he's got a great work ethic, but he starts getting on players' nerves. And we've seen that pretty much everywhere he plays, right? Where he ends up running some guys out of town or something like that. So this is kind of like that's kind of like the counter to, I think maybe we're past the Tortorella in the Blue Jackets. So like maybe he's done later this year, this offseason, right? So
you know what Tortorella, I just thought of this. Tortorella is tailor-made for the USSR team. if it was still a thing today. It feels like that hard ass, like, do what I say. I'm going to kick water bottles at you, and then you guys can smoke cigarettes between periods and still win hockey games. Like, that's John Tortorella. Yeah. And it's not really conducive with today's players and I guess how messages are received.
Yeah, no kidding. And just looking at that division overall, Tampa Bay's in the lead. Not a lot of games played in this division. The Dallas had a bit of a COVID issue where they were kind of sequestered, not allowed to play for the first week and a bit. Had their first game yesterday. They beat the Nashville Predators 7-0. So now that they're clipping, I wouldn't be surprised if we see kind of, I think Columbus is in 6th right now. They might be staying closer to Detroit. Chicago kind of in the bottom of that Discover Central the rest of the way, right? So
I was surprised with what we saw with Chicago last night. They're starting this kid Lankinen, second start in the league. I always give them the benefit of playing, and that is a young goaltender, the benefit of playing well in the first NHL game. Yep. Because, like, it's your moment. This is what you lived your whole life for. You're going to shine. And then I expect to fall off after that. But Lankinen was the exact opposite. I think he had like a 97 save percentage across all strengths. They beat the Red Wings. And Red Wings, albeit, are on the other side of the good spectrum. But I actually had money on Detroit to win because I was expecting this downfall from the goalie. And they was the exact opposite. So maybe he steals a few more games for the Blackhawks this year, but that was one of the most forgettable matchups you will see all year, and that is these guys are going to finish probably 31st, 30th when the dust settles on the season.
Yeah. Well, and to speak of that note of just, well, no, we'll get to boring hockey because that might come up a little bit later in the show. On to the Mass Mutual East. What's our big story coming away from the Mass Mutual East this week? Do you have anything?
Boston finally scored a goal at 5-on-5. That was huge. And I was counting the minutes because they failed to score against Jersey, then I think it was the Islanders, and it was just like maybe was it their 4th or 5th game they scored in. But anyways, you can see what a big loss David Pastrnak is to that team because the team just couldn't figure out. And then all of a sudden they erupted for, I think it was 5-on-5 goals in the third period against the Flyers. Maybe it was 4. It was a lot of goals. So, like, from nothing to something, and now, like, do they find the middle ground? Like, obviously they're not going to score that many goals per game or per period. So, you know, what's the middle ground for the Bruins as they move forward? Because that's a tough division from top to bottom.
Oh, 100%. I don't know if we need to get into these stories, right? There was some suspensions, some fines levied against the Capitals this week for breaking COVID protocols. So it is nice that the NHL is taking these things seriously, and it was like was it $250,000?
It was a fine for $100,000 to the team. Ovi, Kuznetsov, and someone else were fined. And, like, honestly, when I heard that story, my sincerest hope was like, I hope that prostitute was worth it.
Yeah.
Because, like, now you're forfeiting salary. I'm assuming, like, obviously they're not on the hook for the fine, but Ilya Samsonov, their starting goaltender, actually tested positive, and that leaves the Capitals with Vitek Vanacek, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and Eric Comrie as their goaltenders. So it will be interesting to see how they do. Like, their schedule isn't crazy between here and the end of the month, but it will be interesting because even last night in Buffalo, it was 4-3. They won in overtime. Can they duplicate that against some of the better teams in the division before Samsonov is healthy, before Ovechkin and Kuznetsov can come back? But, if you think of this, they lose the rest of the games, it's not that they're out of the playoffs, but they're already digging themselves out of a hole. And like I said, super competitive division. So
yeah, that one should be fun to see. Stories about. Those are actually lots of fun teams. I mean, like, all those teams are pretty... What's the worst team in that division? The Devils? The Devils have a good, like, in terms of fan bases that aren't just Canadian fan bases, this might be some of the strongest fan bases in hockey, right? In this division, right? So it should be fun to see going forward. Honda West, I think, just going through them quickly while I was kind of prepping for the show, this was the only division I really didn't have anything for. It seems kind of lackluster, as it were, right? Vegas, Colorado's up top. You figure St. Louis is going to be okay. Everyone else is kind of,
Minnesota's actually surprising some teams early this season. Yeah. They even caught me off guard because I think I had them at the on the outside of the playoff bubble.
Yeah.
At our preseason rank. Maybe I had them 4th. I can't remember. But 4-1 to start the year. They've only allowed 10 goals against. Like, they are playing sound defensive hockey, and that's reflected in the metrics too. And that's kind of the brand of hockey that we saw Dallas be successful with last year. And that is, we're going to grind you down. We're going to, be opportunistic offensively, but we're going to make those opportunities count. And there's this young kid. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. Kaprizov, something along those lines. I don't have it open in front of me, but he's been dynamite. Just do a quick Google Twitter search for him, and you'll see just how exciting offensively he is alone. And you have 3 lines in Minnesota who can play defense, and you have this young kid who can carry them offensively, and that's kind of better than what we saw from the Stars last year, because they were missing that like big offensive piece. So
yeah,
maybe this is the Wild year.
Well, and that's actually a good point. So, I mean, like Vegas, you think of the perennial contenders in this one. Same with Colorado. And then as you kind of go down, the 2 switchovers from the Central are St. Louis and Minnesota, right? That division has been stacked for years, right? So, I mean, the Minnesota Wild have never really been able to overcome just the greatness of what was the old Central Division. So now maybe the fact that they're able to take their talents, move into a weaker division, right? Where, I mean, the Arizona, the California teams aren't anything special. So maybe by default, they are the 4th best team, and they are kind of competing for that playoff spot long into the season when they're not being steamrolled by those powerhouses that we've seen in the Central for the last decade. Right? Because you can always look at those teams and they've always been pretty good. So yeah, so maybe we made that mistake. I think you had them like at 5th. We only did top 4 in all the other kind of divisions, right? So I think you were kind of like toying between them and the Sharks, thinking the Sharks might have a bit of a bounce back year. So maybe go Wild,
Yeah, just to Kirill Kaprizov. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, your name said on the internet, so good job, buddy. All right, so now to the cream of the crop, what everyone wants to talk about. Scotia North, best division of all sports, obviously.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you. This is kind of our bread and butter, so we can't really diminish what we talk about, what we have spoken about for the last 5 years.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Can't do that. So starting at the bottom, working our way up, puts us at, who would have thought, the Ottawa Senators are the worst team right now in the Canadian. What? Come on.
What a reversal of fortunes. It's unfair to the Senators. Last year they won, or last week they won, this week they're 7, but...
Boo. Well, if you go slower than everyone else, you're probably not going to get ahead of the game, so it's too bad. So yeah, so Ottawa Senators, 1-2-1. They got 3 measly points. Anything exciting in Ottawa land?
They blew that lead against the Jets on Thursday night. They had a 2-goal lead on 2 separate occasions. And I don't know if it's youth and inexperience. I wasn't watching, but I don't know if it's a young team, taking a lead for granted, or if this is just a badly coached team that says, fuck it, we're 6 sheets to the wind, 1 foot out the stadium or out the arena. Let's get home and get to our cars or warm beds, whatever it is. It's just... Yeah, I don't know what to make of the Senators. They are hot and cold. They don't seem to play a full 60 minutes. Offensively, they're doing good. Like they're creating chances, and metrics-wise, they're looking all right. But defensively, they just seem to give up a lot, and that's the difference. And Matt Murray's been dog shit since he started in Ottawa. 88.0 save percentage, I think, is goals against is 3.5, something like that. So, not exactly what they paid him for. He does have curious splits, though, and he does, in his career, do better on the road. That wasn't evident last year. His last year road metrics were garbage, but and he's also played with the benefit of a better Pittsburgh team in front of him. So I'm a little concerned about the Senators on the road. And tonight will be their first road game against the Jets. So how they respond, especially after, tough defeat, getting absolutely ran out of the building. And then tonight's kind of the bounce back spot to see what should we expect from the Senators.
Yeah, great, awesome. I got nothing. Senators. Moving on to 6th, though, that brings us to the Vancouver Canucks. So
I'm so fucking excited.
The edge of the screen here, you do see goal differential. If you go down here, the Senators. They've only played 4 games, which isn't a lot, right? They only have -3 goals against. So that's not terrible. Now, if you move up to Vancouver and you look at their goal differential, -10. -10. So they're getting greatly outscored. I think they're just allowing a lot of goals. It's not like they're getting out. They have kind of a medium goals for. The Vancouver Canucks sitting at 6. What the hell? You guys are supposed to be first.
And like honestly, what we've seen from Vancouver is exactly why I had them ranked last in my preseason rankings, and that is they have given up the most scoring chances, the most high danger chances. They have the 27th ranked save percentage in the league, and that's exactly what I was worried about. And that is, you bring in Holtby, who has bad metrics last year. You bring him into a team that is worse defensively, gives up more, and you expect him to be better. But you're seeing exactly what I thought you would see, and that is a worse goalie. And Demko's been no better. You've hit the nail on the head with him. When he comes in, they have been shit shows and they have been high-scoring games. I don't see this turning around mid-season. Like, you can't go from 201 scoring chances against through 6 games and bring it down to the league average of like 25. Like, there's more at stake here for the Canucks this season than scoring goals, and that is they have to figure out their shit defensively.
We'll see how that chess match works. So one of the reasons I had them as high as I did was we saw them make those changes. They were able to figure out other teams, right? And that's how they had success in the playoffs last year, right? Through Travis Green's coaching. They weren't the best at times, but they were able to make those adjustments. I would think that they're able to kind of balance back. I mean, it's still close, right? Like, they're two games away from being first in the division at this point, so it's not like one of these things where the sky is falling. It'll be interesting to keep an eye on. But yeah, like Grant's saying, I mean, at this point, bet the over in the Vancouver games, right? Like, it looks like goals are coming. They're going to come in plenty, right? Now, one thing we can talk about at some point, and maybe we'll talk about the top. Me and Grant, basically, I was coaxed him into taking a Montreal versus Vancouver offense last week. Elias Pettersson has not got going yet. Once he starts going, I think he has like literally a goal on the season through 6 games. I would think he probably scores and gets a couple more assists. So like once he kind of figures out his game, works just a little bit like that, they're not going to be able to shut a kid like that down all season. And if they do, maybe what we've seen in the past is just kind of a fluke. I think at some point that should like lead to some type of wins down the roads, right? So it's when your stars aren't producing and you're kind of sitting at the bottom. It's to be expected, right?
And yeah, just to touch on that Demko thing, like, or that second night of a back-to-back thing, that's when they've used Demko, and that's where you were correct in your preseason analysis to say that's where they're going to struggle, or Demko's not going to be good. 5-2, 5-2, 7-3, all losses. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to make of the Canucks goaltending situation, but they need to do something differently.
Yeah, I mean, in all fairness, I guess I was just being a troll when I put them at the top last year, so or a couple weeks ago, right? So, yeah. And if you don't know what we were talking about, listen back. We're on iTunes. Go back and listen. Maybe even Spotify. We might be on Spotify. I think we probably clicked that little button. Go back and listen to our preseason rankings where we kind of discuss these things. It's a little outdated now. It's a problem with kind of sports media entertainment is it's really outdated the day you make it almost, right? Like as I'm opening my mouth, it's too bad.
Yeah, Dubois could have already been traded again, and by the time this ends up on the internet, we're going to look like real assholes.
Shit. Well, I mean, it's better than Sportsnet this morning. I was on the exercise bike, saw the trade on my phone, threw on SportsCenter, and they have Darren Dreger on there talking about where is he getting traded. And I was like, really? You don't have somebody that could come in and like do a live recording? You have to run these like pre-recorded shows still? And that's unfortunate, so.
Hey, they've only got like $1 billion to play with, Mick. You take it easy.
Darren Dreger does not get out of bed before 10 a.m. Okay, how about on to number 5, we've got the Edmonton Oilers. 2-4 on the season. They have a -5 goals against. What's going on? Poor Edmonton.
Exactly what we knew was going to be their weakness this year, and that is goaltending. Mikko Koskinen, Jekyll and Hyde, good and bad. he's got such distinct splits. When the Oilers win, he stops like 95% of shots. When they lose, he stops 87% of shots. And you expect a difference. Obviously, when you lose games, you're going to allow more goals. Hypothetically, obviously, there's going to be a difference, but not that stark of a difference where we're seeing almost a 10-point drop. He needs to get his shit together. The Oilers need to get their shit together because even offensively, they're not really lighting the world on fire. 15 goals through 6 games. Their metrics are working. That is, they're generating opportunities. They're creating scoring opportunities, high danger chances. But their shooting percentage is like almost bottom in the league. They're 7.8%, which is ranked 25th in the league. So for whatever reason, they're just not potting those goals.
Yeah, I mean, to play devil's advocate here, they're only a point out of a playoff spot right now, right? Like, they only have to get to 4th. McDavid and Draisaitl aren't scoring like McDavid and Draisaitl are, so those will come, right? I assume that that's going to get caught up unless the division just has the playbook on McDavid. Justin Hall, the last couple games, has done a really good job of guarding McDavid. Usually he gets that kind of the speed. Anytime he was on kind of a breakout play, Hall was with him right to the goal, was able to shut him down. So, I mean, from a Leafs point of view, it looks like kind of Hall is that kind of that big shutdown defenseman, at least in the McDavid world, right? And that's another 8 games, right? So that's kind of important, right? To keep that kind of pairing going along. The 2 games that were played between the Oilers and the Leafs this week, some of the most boring hockey you could possibly imagine. For the amount of star power on the ice, right? Like, if you're looking at, I don't know, 5 of the best, easily top 5 of the best 10 forwards in this division were on the ice in those 2 games. Not a lot of offense, right? It was kind of the other guys that were doing the scoring that were making the difference, and it almost kind of like alluded to more of like a slow down playoff style hockey. It wasn't kind of the run and gun in the regular season. They have a little bit more time to prepare and prep for these different teams. So, I mean, it's good hockey. Like, I'm not saying it's boring, but people are out there claiming that it was boring hockey. It wasn't kind of the fast, exciting, paced hockey that you're seeing, as well as without the fans in the buildings. It does seem like these guys are almost having like a hard time getting up for the challenge, right? Like, they're just going through the motions almost, you know?
Yeah, I kind of picked up on that too. And the Wednesday night game was, I don't want to say a snooze fest, but you know, not what you'd expect when you get McDavid and Draisaitl and Tavares and Marner and Matthews on the ice. And the first goal, where it just kind of banked in off of whatever defenseman's legs, like Yamamoto's goal they gave it to, it just kind of set the tone for the rest of the game, where guess what? This is going to be what to expect. And I think that didn't even come till the second period. So
yeah,
I don't know what is going wrong with the Oilers offensively, because they are creating those chances, they are getting those looks, but when you're only scoring on 7.8% of your shots, it's going to be a long season, and that's going to be made worse by Mikko Koskinen, who is going to allow a hell of a lot more than 93% of the shots that he sees. So, long season, I don't see what the answer is for the Oilers in net. And best case scenario, they make a trade, and then we don't get the guy for 2 weeks because apparently he will have to quarantine. So,
yeah, but I've heard that there is some type of expedited process. So, like, Pierre-Luc Dubois is okay to play right now. Like, he's qualified to play. They're looking at potentially measures when he comes to Canada, he isolates. They might be able to just give him tests, and as long as he tests negative in like 4 out of the 5 tests or something, he might be able to move, right? So that's only 4 days, right? Which isn't terrible. It's a lot better than 14, right? So
I guess the NHL has higher standards for their COVID testing than we did for our education. 4 out of 5. Shit, we would have been happy with like 2.5 out of 5.
Oh, 100%. I'll take a D all day. So, and then the other thing to look at is, I mean, if you look at the 6 games that the Oilers have played, they've played the Flames, who are above them in the standings, Montreal and Toronto, we're talking probably the top teams. Let them play a couple games against the Senators and Vancouver. They did play the one against Vancouver. But, let them play the bottom teams a little bit to kind of churn those points to make that kind of that little bit of a gap. You can't look at them playing the Montreal and Toronto, who look like probably the two better teams in Canada right now, and get 2 down on the Oilers, right? Like, they'll come. McDavid will figure it out, so.
I don't get why you're trying to give me hope here. Like, the last thing I need as an Oilers fan is optimism. It's not for me, Mick. Let me just fucking stew. Sorry. I need the dank.
Sorry. Well, let's move on to number 4. Let's talk about the dank old Calgary Flames. They played 3 games. What the heck? 2 wins, overtime loss. +5 goals differential. That Flames, they were in on Pierre-Luc Dubois. I'd be interested to see what they were looking to give up. You know, like, when trades do go through, I always kind of want to know, like, what were the other deals, right? Like, I love looking back on sports stories, and you see kind of, this is what these guys walked away from. But that's kind of, we can not talk about that. What's going on with the Calgary Flames? They haven't played hockey for a while, have they?
Yeah, and this was something, I'm assuming it was just a scheduling thing. You got 7 teams, so, like, you kind of have an odd man out.
It's like that goofy CFL thing.
Yeah, that's basically it, because I was looking at some of the other team schedules, for example, the Habs, who wrap up a road trip tonight, and they then have, I think it was 4 or 5 days off. So is this just like the odd man out situation with the scheduling early season?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, they haven't played since the 18th, which was Monday. Like, it's kind of a weird random week off. Like, are they still trying to do the bye week thing? That seems pretty early.
I don't think that it's really a bye week thing, because they don't. Yeah, so they have 5 days off, then they have a 4 and 7 next week. It looks like it's kind of hard to go off of. They did blow that lead against the Jets in the first game of the season. Dismantled Vancouver in the next 2. Vancouver offense wasn't working in the first game, and then they get Demko in the second game. So that's kind of recipe for success there. The next week is going to be telling, though, because they get home against the Leafs, and then they travel to Montreal. So kind of that gauntlet that you mentioned for the Oilers. Now the Flames get to run it. We'll get a true idea of what the Flames look like this year. Obviously, early returns are good, leading scoring chances and high danger chances against their opponents, especially on home ice, which is where they thrive. But it's going to be a drag on the road for this team. At least their last year road metrics were a little bit concerning. So, and we saw that in the first game too against the Jets, where they blew the lead and didn't really generate a whole bunch. So, can they figure it out? It's going to be telling against the Montreal Canadiens later this week.
Great, cool. It's tough. I mean, they played 1 game since we talked last. So, not a lot going on there. On to number 3, though, is Winnipeg, who sits proudly in 3rd place. Oh, brave Winnipeg. We kind of always we touched on them anyways with that trade that kind of happened earlier. So you have our views on that. Has your mind changed in the last 30 minutes since we've talked about it? Has something changed? Has something altered your opinion on this trade?
You know what? I have thought about it a little bit, and I'm not going to change my opinion. I want to see Dubois be the goal scorer, and if he is the goal scorer, the sky's the limit for this team. And just earlier this week even, I was thinking, you know what? The Jets' window is closing, and that is because you've got like Wheeler, Stastny getting up there. Scheifele is kind of in prime hockey years. Now you're bringing in Dubois, who's on the other side of prime hockey years and still developing. So this keeps the team fresh a little bit, but defensively they look a lot better, and that was their undoing last year. They just terrible in their own end. And if we're looking at their metrics this year, they're giving up fewer opportunities, especially at 5-on-5, and scoring chances and high danger opportunities against are both down compared to last year by a big margin. So I think it was like 30 and 13 for scoring chances and high danger opportunities last season. They're down to like low 20s and like single digits for high danger opportunities, which is huge.
Yeah, no kidding. Great. Sweet. All right. So that's boring.
And the other thing, Connor Hellebuck deserves to be in the Hart conversation because that guy's unbelievable. And the last thing that I got to mention too is the Jets' wins. 2 of their 3 wins have come from behind victories. So I don't think that's a recipe for success. I think they got to get comfortable playing with the lead early, and they got to be less reliant on Connor Hellebuck if they want to be serious contenders.
Great. Okay, now let's move on to number 2. I got nothing else. I kind of already. I don't want to say.
Blew your Jets load.
Yeah,
that's okay. We were both thinking it.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if I want to say that though. With a straight face. Now that people can see my face, I'm like, oh no. So I was like,
this guy does jerk off to the Jets.
Oh shoot, secret's out. I'm proud of who I am. So on to number 2 though. Number 2 on the paper. Number 1 in my heart. You got the Toronto Maple Leafs. We did touch on a little bit that they had, they a win and a loss against the Edmonton Oilers this week. Bad bounce. If you watch your sports nets or your sports hockey centrals kind of thing, it looked like maybe reffing. The fans were out asking for the refs' heads after that first loss last night when they won. The power play was really the difference, right? The Leafs power play looks excellent, as it should. They've spent a lot of money on their forwards, on their offense. So, I mean, they should be able to score, and they did that last night, right? To kind of complete that game. Go Leafs, go!
I think one thing that you alluded to with Justin Hall, and you can kind of use it as an analogy for the team as a whole, is defensively they are better, and that is huge because I was concerned through the first 3 games that they were giving up a lot of opportunities against. But then you come in, and we've seen the Jets offensively be great. You saw it most recently against the Sens the other night. Was that last night? 2 nights ago?
Yeah.
But they hold the Jets to 3 high danger chances in their game. 3-1 win on the 18th. And then the Oilers come in, and like we mentioned, it was kind of a boring hockey game, and it was boring because the Leafs are better defensively.
Yeah.
And that is they have those neutralizing Justin Hall line where they can, say, even like dampen McDavid, which is huge. The Oilers only managed 6 and 7 high danger opportunities at 5-on-5 in those games. And this is a team that normally averages double digits. They've been as high as 17 on the year. So Toronto's defensive structure is going to carry them a long way, especially if Frederik Andersen is better than what we've seen.
Yeah, I know you just applauded the Connor Hellebuck in the last segment, but I mean, essentially is Anderson maybe the worst part of this Leafs team? Defensively, they look way better. They're way deeper. They just seem like they're more confident with the puck. We're not seeing these stupid turnovers from like the Cody Cece's of the past years. Offensively, they're clicking, obviously. And if watching them actually in that first Edmonton game, it almost kind of is like a curse that they are so talented because every single guy on that team knows that he can score. And it's kind of the curse of, so they have to, like, the other team has to play them as if everyone can score versus if you have kind of the one high-end player and then the other guys that you're like, oh, they're just going to be there for the pass. That's when you get guys off the mark. They're not playing them as heavily. You get open shots in the net. But they kind of do, like, the Leafs almost kind of have a curse of everyone is so good, everyone gets respect, right? Like, you almost need the guys that they're like, oh, that guy's not as good. So we're not going to worry about, like, Jimmy Vesey as much, right? And then he kind of gets the open net or gets the better scoring chances. But that's not a terrible thing to have, right? Like we're too good offensively, right? We have too many good players.
It sounds like you're advocating for more ice time for Jason Spezza, which as an Oilers fan, I would have loved to see.
I mean, he did have that. Was he credited with the goal? That power play goal right after the Draisaitl shorthanded play? I think so.
He was involved. I saw his name on the score sheet.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He was passing the puck. I believe it went off one of the Oilers defensemen into the net. So, I mean, there's a guy right there, Jason Spezza. He doesn't get down. He kind of just does those little intangibles, right? So, I mean, yeah.
Jason Spezza getting power play time in 2021 is worth celebrating. Maybe we should do a Jason Spezza podcast. That's what we'll dedicate next week's podcast to Jason Spezza and just gush over all the good things that he does. Just wrapping up that Anderson comment, they are below 90% in save percentage in 4 of their 6 games this year. So,
yeah, he's looked shaky. Like, if anything, that's one of those things where it's still early, right? Like, you got to figure those things out, kind of get settled a little bit. I mean, worst case, like, if you're comfortable with that shaky performance from Anderson, knowing that he can play at a certain level at certain times, hey, a shaky performance in a contract year is not a terrible thing as a Leafs fan. So.
But do you really want to extend, what is he, 30, 31? You want to extend a 30, 31-year-old goaltender, or do you want to try and maybe get somebody who's a better fit for the team, especially now that we're in like Leafs years, and that is this team should be winning now.
I don't know. I don't know the right answer. I'm remembering the Justin Pogies of the world and like the Vesa Toskalas of the world. So the fact that we have at least a competent, like above average goalie in net, I'm okay riding with Anderson, even if like he starts to like wane a little bit. You give him a 5-year deal, and after like 3 years, they're like, oh, this is bad. I'd rather deal with that than like give up a first for Vesa Toskala and then be like, oh no, he's bad right off the beginning. This is no good. So,
I'm just gonna dig the dagger in a little bit here. Imagine if you didn't trade Tuukka Rask for Andrew Raycroft.
Yeah.
Was it Andrew Raycroft?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, the Razor. Yeah. I mean, it would have been fine, except last year he would have been like, oh, my God, I care more about my family and I'm leaving. Oh, I don't want to play bubble hockey.
Oh, typical Leafs fan. You choose your family over us?
Yeah.
You dirty bitch.
Coward. All right. And then last but not least, moving up to the top of the board, we've got the Montreal Canadiens, the Abatons. They've got 3 wins, 2 overtime losses, and 0 regular or losses in regulation. That's what I was going for. Plus 8 goal differential. They're kings of the world. But they did play Vancouver twice, so like I don't know if we should like give them all the credit in the world.
I'm so happy that we get to talk about the Canadiens first overall, because that is where I had them ranked in the preseason ranking show. Offensively, they have been, in a word, relentless. Like, they are grinding from the full 60 minutes, and they are getting all 4 lines to contribute. And that is when Josh Anderson isn't scoring goals, then you have Tyler Toffoli. When Nick Suzuki isn't scoring goals, then Joel Armia, for some reason, is scoring goals. And that's kind of exactly what I was expecting from them, and that is to have balanced attack and being able to roll whatever lines they need to against whatever lines they need to score goals. And they are doing that, and they've been successful with it early this season. They are on unsustainable ground, and that is they've scored 24. Their expected goals for is 14, so that is they've scored 10 more goals than what they hypothetically should have. And their shooting percentage is at 13.3%, which is way above league average. There's a few teams above them, but typically, I think over the last 6 years, the highest a team has finished with a shooting percentage is about 11.2%. I think it was the Bolts. So, like, way above even the highest end of the spectrum over the last 6 years, which is evidence that, they're going to come back, crashing back down to earth. But the scary thing is like they're still producing. They're still top 10 in every goal scoring metric. So they're creating opportunities. They've just been really great at finishing. It's maybe in a condensed year we get this one big outlier because you've seen Foley had a hat trick. You've seen Josh Anderson have a multi-goal game. Like, they have more than one guy who can score the goals. So I don't know, man. The one downfall I would say that we've seen is Carey Price it fucking pains me to say this, but he's in the autumn of his career because we've seen these decreasing metrics year over year. And, like, I want them to win it with Price in net, and their opportunity for that is actually shrinking.
Yeah, no, for sure. Did I have a point? No, I did not. I mean, if anything, I can pull up our pool. So right now, if you look, Grant is leading the Habs versus Canucks pool. So Grant's squad has 49 points on the season. Mick's poor, pathetic Canucks pool only has 49. So pretty even scoring right across the board from all the Montreal Canadians. The Tyler Toffoli pick by Grant looks genius at this point. Gallagher, Anderson, 3 points apiece. It's all right. And then
I just on that Josh Anderson note, I did a lot of soul searching this week. I even shaved for my big Josh Anderson moment this week.
Wow.
And obviously you can see I'm not referring to my face, and you didn't even cue me with the, hey Grant, give me the Josh Anderson treatment.
Yeah, sorry about that one. That was I was like worrying about clicking and where to put my mouse. So right now, down in the pool, I think we have a chance. Like I said, I think those metrics, we're going to see some negative regression coming for the Habs. They're going to quiet down just a little bit. I think we're going to see guys, like I said, that Elias Pettersson, that 1 assist on the season, I think we're going to see that come up a little bit. And, I got to do a shotgun Jake last weekend, so that was fun.
You know what? I hate notifications on my phone. I have them basically all turned off. But I don't know how to... I just figured out, literally this week, how to turn off the Jake Virtanen notifications, because I kept getting, oh, great, Jake Virtanen scored. Do people still do shotgun Jakes?
No, I feel like no one ever did it. Like, maybe guys in Vancouver did it for a weekend, and then they forgot, and then it's just been me. So.
Keeping the trend alive.
That's it. Keeping old memes alive since 2004. I don't even know what memes were around in 2000. That's probably not even a thing. So, great. So that kind of wraps up our headline segment. Only thing I want to touch on is the Montreal-Vancouver game, 5 o'clock tonight. Should be fun. Thing I'm looking forward for most is intermissions. I forgot the joy, the beauty that is Kevin Bieksa's analysis. That guy is, I can't say it. I realize that. I don't want haters exactly coming after me, but the step between what we're getting, the analysis we're getting from Don Cherry to Kevin Bieksa is a giant leap and bound. I would love to see that guy carry on with his career. I feel smarter anytime I listen to him, right? And as a very dumb person, me feeling smarter does not happen very often, right? So getting those little leaps and bounds, I'm kind of excited for that tonight. That's probably the thing that's keeping me going tonight. I've got a couple hours before he comes on my TV and makes me a smarter person. So good job, buddy.
You know how many people have tried and failed at that over the years? Like, Kevin Bieksa is kind of like your Jesus.
He is getting there. Really enjoying the Sportsnet panel at this point, or like the Hockey Night in Canada panel. I guess what it was. I would love to see him throughout the week, but I understand too that they kind of keep those more premium guys for the premium content on the weekends, right? So,
you know what I'm excited about? I haven't had a Saturday night to sit down and watch both games from start to finish in probably like 4 years. Yeah. And tonight is one of those nights where I have literally nothing to do. I've got a fridge full of beer and an ass groove on a couch. I'm going to watch 2 hockey games. And you know what? I'm going to take notes for you so that we can relive the Kevin Bieksa highlights next week during our podcast. And I can get you even more fucking amped up for the Saturday night show next week.
It's great. Although I was looking tomorrow. There's a Leafs game. Who do the Leafs play tomorrow? Flames, which is fun, but it's at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I realized that the Packers play the Buccaneers at 1. So
I'm glad you mentioned scheduling.
It's unfortunate.
6 games today, 12 tomorrow, with the conference championship games.
Yeah.
That I don't think the NHL thought this through. Like, maybe I was thinking, because there's a whole, well, not a whole slew of them, but there's 4 afternoon games. So I was thinking maybe they're trying to get in on the NFL action before it actually starts. So that is, I don't know why you would lead with Detroit at Chicago, but they did. Detroit at Chicago, 10:30, Buffalo, Washington, 1, Toronto, Calgary, 2, along with Vegas and Arizona. But that's right around the time the football games are starting, too. So, like, what? Like, you do not want fans? You're already struggling to make money, Gary Bettman.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, looking at the very light schedule we have for today's games that we'll get into in, like, just a second. We'll talk about the gambling for today. But, yeah, like, I'm not going to focus as much on hockey tomorrow with football on, right? Whereas I would have focused all day. I have nothing to do after this. I would have sat on the couch gladly and watched hockey the rest of the day. But, alas, I'll wait till my buddy comes on at 5 o'clock, so...
So drunk, have your roses waiting by the TV for Kevin.
Just lay it down. Here you go, buddy. Cool. So with that, let's move on to... Let's end with Bettor Advice. Yeah, let's do that. So let's move on to... did we have a segment? Was it called something? My Dirty Fantasy or something?
My Dirty Fantasy.
My Dirty Fantasy. I believe is what it was called in the past. So what we were doing was daily fantasy lineups. I don't have it queued up. Should I pull it up? Should I pull up FanDuel? See what's going on the computer? FanDuel.
I got
DraftKings. That's not what I wanted.
I've been trying to get into daily fantasy stuff myself, and I'm trying to figure it out. I haven't really been that active with it, and by that I mean I haven't entered actual lineups. I've kind of taken this secondary approach to build my lineups, see how they do comparatively to had I entered it. Early returns aren't great. I'm confident with what I put together tonight, though, because I do think that the Winnipeg Jets are outmatching and outclassing the Senators. So I went with the Jets stack. You won't be able to see it, but I'll just run through my lineup quickly. I went with Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, Nikolai Ehlers, Neil Pionk, and Connor Hellebuck as my stack. I think you can only have 5. So then I complemented that with Nick Suzuki, Eric Gustafsson, Claude Giroux, and Tyler Bozak. And that was draining my bank. Absolutely. I got 0 left in the tank, but I will keep track of their points. And I'm hoping that I can kind of build some momentum and figure shit out so that I can enter the DFS market a little bit more confidently. But I have a good feeling about this lineup tonight.
Great. Can I... No, it's not going to ever show me the salaries, is it? Oh, if I go a little bit closer. All right, so the lineup that I put together, mine's a little more fun because there is room for some growth, right? So I'll start on the back end here. I took Binghamton, which is the projected goalie against the Kings tonight. I believe the Blues are going to beat the Kings. Therefore, Binghamton gets a win, right? So that's kind of was my logic there. I then moved into defense and took Parenko as well as Justin Falk and just kind of did that defenseman stack with my goalie as per some of the rules I put out last week. For my other line stack, I've got Nick Suzuki, Josh Anderson, and Jonathan Drouin. So I've got the entire second line for the Montreal Canadiens. Those guys are relatively cheap. Like you can see just in the corner here, 5-4-4, which leaves quite a bit of money to fill out your other center position as well as your 2 utility positions. So I basically took the most expensive players. So Brad Marchand. I like Travis Konecny against the Bruins. I think there's going to be a lot of scoring in this affair, so I kind of paired that. And then Braden Point, who was the high center man. And as we were talking about earlier, I believe, who did we like other than him? I think if we go someone, let's say like Elias Pettersson playing against Montreal, I think again, he's at some point points are going to come for this guy, probably in a group, because we're going to see him with 50, 60 points probably at the end of the year, right? Maybe more. So if we switch with him, that does give us a little bit more of a budget. And what we can do is we can actually take this poor little Justin Falk guy, and it gives us an extra, enough money that we can actually add a Shea Weber to our lineup. It's not bad.
You know my thoughts on the Habs this year, so you know where my opinion would lie with taking Shea Weber as opposed to...
Well, and one of the other rules I laid out last week was you want to pay up for defensemen, right? So yeah, I could pay $3,900 for Justin Falk. He may not do anything. Yeah, he might be fine defensively. I don't think he's going to put the kind of the points on the stat sheet that are going to kind of bring me into that winning part of the bracket. But with the Shea Weber... yeah, I'm paying a little bit more, but it's probably worth it. It does leave me, I think, even with like $200 cash if I wanted to play around with something. So if I didn't like the Pettersson, or if I wanted to move up from Parenko, I could do that. But for right now, I like those little line adjustments there. So with that lineup, you do kind of play around with your utility players. So whether it's Konecny and Marchand, you really have kind of the liberties with what you want to do with that one, right? So there was kind of my base, that Montreal stack, Parenko and Binghamton, and then the rest is kind of up to you, right? Based on how you see fit. So,
yeah, and just to reiterate my love for Shea Weber, 4 points through 5 games. He's been a big part, and so is Jeff Petrie. Like I don't think you could go wrong with either one of those guys. I don't know where Petrie is priced in the DFS slate, but I imagine he's probably a little bit cheaper than Shea Weber.
Yeah, Weber was the second below Victor Hedman. So I mean, you could do that, and you could move up from the Pettersson or something like that, right? Or move on from Konecny, right? Kind of play around with that. And I think that's kind of the fun with DFS is there's no right answer. You can kind of play around and you can have your own personal opinions and biases, but at least you know what my skeleton looks like. You can just kind of add that fleshy meat to it. So, as well as anyone watching on YouTube, you definitely saw my personal email and login for FanDuel, so it's exciting.
How many 4-letter words can there be? Tits? ass.
Ass. Yeah, you really got to hold that one there. So,
damn it.
Good. And then the only other thing we got
the internet again.
for you is Bettor Advice. Oh, you can't see the top one here. Now you can't really see the whole form. Yeah. Grant. No, nothing really there. Grant, how'd you do last week?
Last week I did good. I think I closed my betting sheet. I can't see your screen right now. I had 3 picks. I lost the overtime bet that was Toronto-Ottawa.
Yep.
But I did cash the over on... which over did I take? Do you got...
Yeah, I do. So you had the over in the Rangers-Islanders game.
Right. It was plus money. It was plus 110. And then I had the Flames beating Vancouver for minus 150. So I ended up making money. I think I ended up plus 45. I'm sure the viewers can see what I made. I'm excited to build on that. I've been paying really close attention to the NHL this year. I've been trying to do it a little bit more diligently because this is all we have right now.
Yep.
As a better, there's nothing else. Well, I guess there's college basketball. NBA is not really my thing. I can't figure it out for some reason. However, hockey being what it is, it's so chaotic. You can be on the right side of the bet for the entire game and still lose. Hot goaltender, few posts, whatever the case. There's so much luck involved in hockey. So hopefully we'll just stay on the right side of that moving forward. I have 4 plays. Loyal listeners, I hope you love my overtime plays as much as I do. I am leading with that in Montreal, Vancouver. Vancouver's playing their 6th game in... this is a 3 and 4 for those teams, sorry. So 3rd time these teams have played each other in 4 nights. Montreal's played something like 7 games in 11 days, all of it on the road. I can see them being a little exhausted. Like I said, they're kind of prime regression candidates early in the season, so I don't know if they're going to run away with it like they did the 2nd game. So little tighter affair. They also have a ride home to look forward to. I'm sure, getting to go home and see your loved one sleep in your own bed is something that might weigh on them a little bit. So I'm taking this game to go to overtime for $20 at plus 330. And then again, it's a Saturday night game. I don't know why I love the Saturday night game overtimes, but that's what that is. Philadelphia, Boston, you saw these teams erupt for an offensive display last time out. I think there was 9 total goals. Philadelphia, again, they're kind of in the same boat as Montreal where they're offensive outliers, and that is they're overachieving, but they are doing it well. Boston is also going to break out of their shell. You saw it at the end of last game. This totals 5.5, and the over is even money. So you get plus 100 on the over. That's a no-brainer for me. I got $30 on that. And that brings me to my DFS stack and 2 plays that I'm probably actually going to wager a lot of money on in real life. Jets minus 158 on home ice. Connor Hellebuck is dynamite on home in prime time. I love that guy. Sens are playing their first road game, and you saw them kind of fall apart in the home games, the last couple games. Maybe they pull things together a little bit, but I think without the advantage of last change, they're going to be caught in some mismatches. So Jets are probably, I'm not going to say run away with this one, but I expect a good performance from them. $30 on the Jets money line, minus 158, and I also think they cover the puck line, minus 1.5, plus 176, and that is on the strength of good offensive performance, Matt Murray being dog shit, and Connor Hellebuck, saving a few goals that probably should have went in.
Great, awesome. All right, well, I think I'm down on the season. So I went over in the Carolina-Detroit game last week, which... Oh, I thought I got more than that. It's saying I bet $33, minus 120, hit that, and my winnings was $16. Does that sound about right?
So the winnings only reflects like the actual money. So because it was... let me just see that.
I think that sounds low in my...
Let me just do some quick math here.
Yeah, perfect. Anyways, so I'm down on the season. So I hit the 1 bet. So I'm down about $50, right? Kind of with that kind of thinking there. So I did not do it as well as Grant. But I'm going to try and get ahead of Grant by just basically copying his plays. Montreal, Vancouver, I've got on my sheet. On my book, I got plus 350 for an overtime. I was going to put $10 on that. So basically, I'm just parodying you on that one. Then I was going to do 3 overs. I had Philly Boston with over at that 5.5 for even. I was going to do $22 on all of these plays. I also like the over in the Ottawa as well as the Tampa game.
All right, I dig it. So yeah, you're right that there was a mistake on that sheet. You won $27.50.
$27.50. Yeah, so it's kind of, I figured I was 60. I was down to about $40 on the season, which is kind of one of the perks of kind of spreading the money around just a little bit there. So the other one, for Tampa over, I've got minus 110 at 5.5 goals. And the Ottawa game is over 6 goals, and that's even money. I'm going to put $22 on all of those affairs. With my $10 for that overtime bet, that leaves me with $24, and I'm going to put that on a Philadelphia Flyers win parlayed with the Blues winning. That gives me a plus 245, and that'll be $24 on that play. So spread it out a little bit more. I actually thought about it and didn't just come up with it like during the segment, so it's a big step up for me.
Yeah, it's funny what a little thought can do, hey?
Yeah, doesn't take much, so... Sweet. So that's kind of it for our Bettor Advice. No game for today. I do feel like, what was it, an hour? Less than an hour before we kind of started recording today, we had that Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. That definitely took up a lot more of our time. We might be literally some of the first hockey content that's live talking and discussing our thoughts, opinions on this trade, even with fun videos. I didn't have, like, clips, though, so sorry. I don't know how to do that yet.
You know what? Wait, you know what? We are on the internet. Our faces, for the right reasons this time, actually. Our faces are on the internet for the right reasons. And that's huge. I don't know, I don't even know how you do what you do, but you also included that cool ice hockey caption or video at the beginning as our intro, man. I was blown away. I was like, the production value of this YouTube video greatly exceeds what anything I could have contributed. And that includes my shitty opinion.
Just in case anyone didn't notice, I did specifically pick all fat guys as my ice hockey team, so...
But that's the right strategy. Nobody can take the puck from the fatties.
No, that's it. You're a little bit slower, and you go from there. So, yeah. So
Good metaphor, too.
I thought so. So with that, I think that kind of wraps up what we have for today. I think we've got one more Babe of the Week. Add to that little bit of a spank bank. And then we're out of here.
You know what I love about Instagram is that I have this curated list of just absolute dimes, and sometimes there's food mixed in, but I could just open up my Instagram search history, or not search history, search bar, and it's just babes everywhere, boners for weeks. Our Babe of the Week brought to you from Down Under. No, that was a terrible Australian accent. Down Under.
Oh, Austria! Great! Oh, throw a shrimp on the barbie!
Alicia.par_, so ALICIA.PARR_, considers herself a fitness model, 574,000 followers, and I like what this lady does.
Yeah, she's very, very smooth skin, so it's not bad. So, good job, Alicia. You're the Babe of the Week. Swing!
Swing. Double swing.
Awesome. All right, so with that, that's everything. So, party on, Grant.
Party on, Mick. We will see everybody next week.